I noticed the last one we recorded, it sounded pretty quiet in it.
I noticed that too. I don't know why. Your thing was up on the mic. We're live, by the way.
And
this is
close.
This is episode
22.
Day 22 episode. Dude, this is episode 69. Let's fucking go.
Yeah.
All right, I am here with Nolan O'Connor, who was on 2 episodes ago, and Megbot 3000, straight from Battlestar Galactica.
Hello.
Let's get into AI.
Yeah. So I'm an intelligent life form sent from space.
Yeah.
Basically created in a lab.
Nice.
Yeah. So no, we were talking about Chat GPT. For those who have and haven't heard of it, it's basically artificial intelligence. I forget what it stands for specifically, but it's kind of revolutionizing our technology and potentially our society, in the fact that you can type any prompt question or anything, and it's going to come back with a full answer, pretty specific, based on information from the internet. And a lot of people think it'll revolutionize, the labor force, technology, obviously, and so many other things. So pretty interesting, pretty scary.
Pretty fucking scary, dude. What you just showed me on the computer was absolutely absurd.
Yeah, you can just ask it a question about an essay, write me an essay about historical figures in the United States involved in the Civil War or something. It's gonna pump out a quick essay, light work, and it's gonna you can
I
ask
don't
it
find
for
it scary.
citations.
I kind of find it renowned.
Dude,
Yeah.
I find it terrifying.
Because it's gonna save so much time for researchers and just people in general. Which
is it though? It definitely. Well, what do you mean by research?
so we were talking about it, Nolan and me, and basically it's gonna make people who have lack of motivation a lot less motivated and a lot slower and just kind of probably a little bit dumber because they're not doing things for themselves.
Yeah.
They're not going out and finding the research. But when it comes to scientists or people who go out and spend hours on hours researching things to come to a conclusion, they can just type it into something like that.
Yeah.
And it
that's
has
true.
all the answers from all the history books and whatever else it can access that's online.
That's fucking crazy.
Yeah, I mean, the only thing is, if it's already online, then chances are people already know about it. So when it comes to actually finding out new things, I feel like it's not gonna erase human motivation, if that makes sense. But
Yeah.
I do agree. I think it'd probably make people a little less interested in writing their own work and stuff like that.
Isn't there robots in SF doing shit?
They postponed it.
There's supposed to be there's talk of releasing these robotic I don't know if they were dogs or whatever, some type of robots that's supposed to work with the police force. And I think the idea behind it is if there is someone who's trying to do a mass shooting or something, trying to cause harm to multiple people, it's better to send in something that isn't conscious or sentient, that isn't going to die, right? Like a human, to try and stop that situation. But I feel like we're probably a long way from something like that
Well,
being implemented.
They made it sound like they were going to be on the streets. So obviously people in San Francisco were up in arms because the news article on SF Chronicle legit said killer robots to be released in the streets of San Francisco.
Killer robots.
That's literally what it said.
It's classic media headline for you.
Yeah, so
Fucking
obviously
right.
people freaked out, and now the whole project is postponed and potentially canceled.
Dude, did you guys see that one video recently of, it was there were UFOs and it was 6 of them, and they all came from around a bend, and they shot super fast, and it was a fucking V, dude. I swear to God, it was a fleet of these UFOs, and they just came around.
Is it
It's a
seagulls?
flock of geese.
No, dude, these things were moving. I wish I could find the
AI
video,
seagulls.
but Rogan talked about it, and dude, these
I knew
things,
it's going to be on Rogan.
these things came around a bend in a V formation.
Jamie,
and
can you pull
just-
that up?
Jamie.
Yeah, just on the Google it.
But yeah, they came around a bend and they just went whoo. It was nuts. Do you guys believe in UFOs?
Yeah, for sure.
Aliens?
No doubt. We pretty much are aliens if you think about it.
We are aliens.
Yeah, we
know,
are.
because-
Obviously, there's multiple galaxies and universes where people or things are surviving. Like, we're not the only living
Yeah.
beings,
Yeah.
the only planet that's capable of living. So I think the idea that it's not an option is just absurd.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's straight facts. So if you needed to send one person out to communicate with the aliens, survival mission,
Probably, let me think about that for a second.
dead or alive?
Probably Brad Pitt.
I was going to say Mike Tyson.
Mike
Fight his ear off.
That would be fucking sick.
What about you?
Dude, I don't know. Probably like Philip Seymour Hoffman.
He's dead. Oh, dead or alive.
Yeah, dead or alive.
Okay. Yeah, he's good.
Send his corpse.
His corpse.
But as far, let's get back into the AI thing. I mean, I what do you think about the whole concept of, it's supposed to remove jobs from the workforce? So,
Yeah.
think of all the potential jobs that require you to sit down at a computer and like type stuff out manually. It's potentially going to change like our economy as a whole,
Yeah.
And in the video I was watching earlier today, they were talking about how it's like, picture the first iPhone, right? It's like the iPhone 3. It's very like not limited, but less advanced as to what we have now, the 15, 14 or whatever.
Mm.
And it's like, that happened over the course of like 10, 15 years or whatever. And so right now we have the earliest iteration of AI open to the public, which is Chat GPT. But that, 15 years from now is going to be similar. Probably like technology evolves fast. So
Yeah.
it's going to probably go quick. It's going to be in our lifetimes. I'm sure we're going to see some crazy stuff happen. And yeah, it's in the video that one I was telling you about, he just talks about like, you can either be afraid of it or you can just get on board and realize that, everything's constantly evolving and changing. And if you get on board, you can potentially use it to your advantage and figure out how to stay ahead of the curve. So
Musk talks about that a lot. What you just said, like advancing with it instead of kind of resisting it. I don't know, man. It's weird because you know how, like you were saying, the iPhone 3 started and now we're at what, 15, 14? They already have like the next, I don't know, probably 5 iPhones ready. So imagine what that technology is that we already have. They just are releasing it because we're fucking.
past 10 iPhones have been the same exact thing.
You think?
They're like, all right, here's
The
this
lenses
new
are
iPhone
different.
with an extra lens and a new animal emojis, but we'll mark it up
Yeah.
$1,000.
Well, that's what I'm kind of getting at. Like, they're not going to stop.
Yeah, no.
You know?
I'm
So-
just joking. But
So,
The lenses on the 14 are wider to allow a zoom.
at what point do cameras like that become irrelevant?
as far as like artificial intelligence goes, or
As far as
as far as evolving
Once-
technology.
once people have the access, like, I mean, these cameras now, dude, are fucking ridiculous.
Yeah,
They're
they're
not
they're
even
nice, but I don't think they'll ever be irrelevant. Well, I guess you could have like a handheld camera in the future that's gonna be similar, but I don't know. I mean, like there's like right now that camera, I don't think it'll be irrelevant because you can put it on a tripod, you can adjust so many things that an iPhone still can't do.
Yeah, true.
Like ISO, aperture, and all that. Like and you can adjust it, and then you have like all these intricate settings within it. It's just more capable, right? It's like
the nicer cameras, obviously, yeah. Like the
Yeah.
one you have in the movie cameras.
Yeah, I was
you'll
going
never
to say
be
you're
able to get
never
that.
going to see a movie
Yeah.
filmed on an iPhone.
Well,
unless it's an
that's
indie
not-
film,
yeah.
a short
Yeah.
indie film that nobody wants to watch.
yeah.
yeah,
I don't know. We'll see. I mean, we'll see in our lifetimes, I'm sure.
dude,
But,
that's fucking crazy. What are you most terrified of for the future?
let me think on that for a second. Probably like my steez levels overloading. Yeah, just
My steez levels.
I don't know too much.
Are you rocking a lot right now?
Yeah, almost maxed out.
Overdosing?
Yeah.
Nice, dude.
No, I don't know. In the future, as far as like personal fears, I'm just mostly afraid of like prolonging, like not getting what I want done, and like I want to travel and do all these things. I just want to make sure I get those done before it's too late. So
Yeah.
personally, that as far as like worldwide, I mean, God, I don't know, another pandemic, like. People are just going crazy with all the like. I feel like there's a lot of like friction in the world. That's
Yeah.
like kind of discomforting. But yeah, I don't know. What about you?
Dude, I don't know. It's now that I'm thinking about it, there's a lot that I fear.
Really? Like what?
I would say the education system's number one.
I think it's evolving.
In what form?
Just the way that, just the whole education system, public school education system, it just doesn't seem like it's advancing quick enough.
Yeah, I think, there's pros and cons to it for sure. I think a problem is just like people don't know what they want to do, which is no one's fault. And, I guess, actually, let me rephrase that. Or let me ask you this question. If it was perfect in a sense, what do you think it would look like?
I think there'd be a lot more emphasis on developing as a human first and not overloading kids with useless information that a lot of kids probably won't use.
Right.
And, especially in like broken households, the argument would be, well, that's the parents' job. Well, in a lot of cases, the parents aren't there to kind of teach kids how to, take care of themselves and
navigate
and be have a little bit of emotional intelligence and compassion for others. Like, it should, obviously, in a perfect world, that would be taught in a home, but I would say that I don't even know what a right number would be, but it would definitely be over 50% of households could be broken in America,
Yeah, I mean, I do think there's schools out there that do emphasize that, like the Waldorf schools and stuff. They emphasize like creativity and whatnot. I just think the problem in and of itself is a very complex situation, right?
Totally, yeah.
I always like ask people this, like I would hear sometimes people complain like about reality. They're just like, oh, like this is not like ideal in any shape or form. But it's like when you ask yourself, like, how could this be ideal? It might be like simple on paper, but when you look into the complex issues that we all face, it's so much more than that, like,
yeah.
It is, as much as I do think like I agree, it needs a lot of reform and stuff. There's no easy like answer. That's, I think, what's problematic about it,
Yeah.
But yeah, I agree with you. I mean, it's hard because it's like, you have these colleges. I think, obviously, I think most people can agree on like overpriced colleges is obviously a little ridiculous. Like you sign yourself into debt when you're 18, your brain's not even fully developed and all that. Like that's obviously not good. But I do think like it's as rough as that is, there is parts of the education system that are good and bad, So I think it's a matter of just like weeding out it's just something that's going to take time, I think,
Yeah.
But I do think like with what you talk about, like it's the right track, right? You're like trying to emphasize stuff that's bad, and then like as I said before, it's going to be a problem that like takes time to chip away at. So,
yeah.
I mean, because I'm sure you've had like one or two professors or teachers that you've like really have sculpted your like thinking and stuff in a positive way, So it's like that exists, which is good, worth talking about. And then
one of them is actually your cousin.
Yeah, I remember you saying that.
Because I had her for like 6 years, but that's the good part of it. But there's only a few teachers that I can think of, and one professor in my college 1-year career. But it was your cousin and Mr. Cummins. And the reason I liked them so much is because they didn't talk to me and kind of treat me like a student. They treated me like a person, human to human, not teacher to student, And that's not the fault of all the other teachers, but like if you can kind of get to the level with a student human to human as opposed to authority figure to, I don't know, student, I guess.
Yeah, I hear what you're saying.
But yeah.
It is, yeah, there's aspects of it that need to be changed. I mean, as far as like authority goes, like it is bad when like teachers just like, put students down for like thinking like, sometimes there's teachers that are like super like quote unquote, for lack of a better word, like on paper, like things have to be super accurate to their standard for them to like it and give you a good grade, which in return is going to give you confidence, right? So it's like, say you have an essay on something dear to you, but that's not what they were looking for. They might shoot you down and therefore crush your creativity. Yeah. And that's problematic. So yeah, it's complex, I mean,
going deeper into education as far as like what I think needs to be taught more, especially in underprivileged neighborhoods and stuff. I've been watching this dude I forget his name, but he goes around like to a bunch of different kind of neglected neighborhoods and talks to locals and really gives a good perspective on the community around these areas, right? But through all the videos I've watched and all the themes, everything that the struggles that the people go through is usually not having a father figure in the house. And then the dude asks, like, you have any kids or whatever? And a lot of them say, like, yeah, I have 5, 6, 7. And they're like, where are the kids? Like, oh, they're with their mothers. And it's 7 different baby mamas, you know? And I think a big problem with that is obviously the lack of education and the lack of understanding that, like, having a child is a massive fucking responsibility. So even I can relate it back to my instance. Like, I don't think we are taught enough throughout our childhood what a responsibility of being a father or mother is, you know? And I guess it boils down to lack of education and just the knowledge that, like, if you have a child, you are responsible to take care of that child. But you see in a lot of the videos that dude makes is like, it's just a generational thing where their father was never in the picture, and then they go on to have 7 kids with 4 different moms. They're all living in different areas, and they're not around for that generation, and then it just keeps going and going and going, you know?
So do you mean lack of education as far as, like, lack of, like, parenting knowledge?
I think about it like this. Like, yes, lack of parenting knowledge, but more specifically, like, these young adults / getting into adult humans that are probably, I'm going to say 18 to 24 or whatever. I don't think that there's enough emphasis on, like, okay, if you have a kid, you now have to dedicate your life to that kid and make sure that kid is brought up in a
responsible and coherent manner.
Yeah, exactly.
And I think they kind of leave that to the parents to teach the child. And then the child grows up to be a parent, and they're supposed to just know that this is the way. But I think you're right. Like, it's not really something that's taught how to be a parent. It's almost like something that's supposed to be known, but it's not like it's easy for everybody.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, when you have a rock flying through space and 8 billion people all put
Dude,
on it
isn't that fucking crazy?
Reproduce, there's some stuff's gonna go wrong.
Not necessarily
Totally.
flying through space. We're like circling. We're not like flying through.
Yeah.
And another thing is, like, I want to say Tory Lanez or Tyga. One of them has, like, or no, fuck, it's Nick Cannon. Nick Cannon has like 17 kids, dude.
That's what happens when you beef with Eminem.
But that should not, like, I think that lack of responsibility should be not demonized, but it definitely should not be glorified.
Yeah, I mean,
you know,
let's get into nature versus nurture. You're familiar with that concept, right?
Kind of.
Nature versus nurture. It's like nurture being parenting, how you bring up your kid, and nature is genetic, dispositions that you already are born with. And, there's the argument, is nature more relevant to who you become, or nurture, or is it a mix of both? I personally think it's a mix of both. Like, you have these dispositions, like, for example, like, a short temper might run in your family, or you might have like OCD or something like that. So you might be born with that. But you also, if you're born with that and you have a quote unquote bad parent versus a good parent, the child from the good parent is probably going to potentially be better based on nurture. Does that make sense? Yeah. So what do you think of that? What do you think's more important, nature or nurture? Or do you think both combination kind of creates who you become?
Both. I would say case by case.
Yeah.
Which is a whole beast in and of itself, Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's such a hard topic, and there's so many different fucking variables in every single situation. So yeah, I don't know. It's really tough. It's really tough to pinpoint. I do think though that a solution that obviously can't be fulfilled just by the click of a button.
Blanket statement.
Well,
yeah.
so think about it this way. A kid who grows up with parents who are maybe millionaires, lives in a great environment. So like lives around like as far as like nature, like he has like 100% as far as standard goes, but he doesn't have the nurture because his parents are gone all the time. They're constantly working. He just has nannies and he's home alone. So he becomes what is pretty common with kids of wealthy parents is like they just get into drugs or they have lack of motivation or, among a lot of other things. So I think both are for sure important, but it's definitely a delicate balance.
For sure.
Yeah.
Another.
Go ahead.
I was going to say an example that I always kind of think about as far as empathy and having an open mind to different perspectives is like, let's say family A has both nurture and nature. They do a really good job raising their kids. Their kids are all successful. They've been nurtured correctly, whatever. Lived in one house their whole life, one town, community. They're proud of where they're from, whatever. They haven't really faced too much adversity. Like, they've had a good life, a very blessed life. Their perspective on things is going to be very limited no matter what, and it's not their fault. But I think about a lot in cases in East Aurora, like the bubble, and people just don't understand the outside world, right? And I hear a lot of kids, I remember in high school, like growing up, they'd have these opinions on certain social issues and stuff, and they're speaking with such confidence in that topic. And from me, coming from like my childhood background and everything, hearing them talk about issues that they have no fucking idea the beginning of the actual fucking issue.
I mean, I think anyone under the age of probably 30's opinion is irrelevant.
I agree. I agree.
Like, it's irrelevant. Like, no one knows what they're talking about, and everyone's opinion is based off their own like specific upbringing and individual like stimuli. So yeah, I think it's irrelevant a lot of times. I remember I used to argue so much more like in high school and shit about like stuff that I might have thought I was passionate about at the time, but like I really just like to hear myself talk. Yeah. Like I'm just like yeah. I mean, I'm just saying like, you know, I would argue with people about stuff that I was like just like kind of programmed to believe. I didn't even like really ask myself why I believe this stuff. I just like wanted to argue with someone for the sake of arguing and like being right. So I don't know. I think
your opinion's irrelevant.
Yeah, I mean, opinions in general is just based upon their own experience and is, you know, person to person. But
I just have this. I have this example in my head, and I'm not going to put anyone on blast, but like I know a very, very amazing family, and their parents have done a great job, and their kids have turned out amazing. But I hear them talk about social issues, and they think they're social justice warriors in every aspect, no matter what it is. But they have
never experienced hardship.
Yeah, and it's frustrating because they think they're doing the right thing by whatever actions they're taking and this, and that, but they don't get down to like the root of some issues, you know?
So how do you define a social justice warrior?
Someone who doesn't really, this is a whole nother thing. Like that could be, there's a spectrum of it really, but I don't know. I just think someone who I can tell hasn't faced a lot of adversity, and
I think also I do think though it's ignorant to say someone hasn't faced a lot of adversity based on their cover, you know, just because someone has wealthy parents and like had a good upbringing. Everyone has their own struggles, so people, I do think that in cases like that's true, like some people haven't experienced that, but I also think too, like you never know what other people are experiencing. So
I agree totally, but in the examples that I'm thinking of in my head, I was heavily involved
Okay.
in their life. So I don't even know how to like tiptoe around this.
So you don't think that they're not well traveled? They don't do research.
Not-
That's what I'm catching, right? Like,
Kind of. They're well traveled, but they're well traveled with daddy's money, and they're
Okay.
not like.
But does that mean that they're not creating and like learning their own experiences?
Yes, in a way, they haven't walked in the shoes of the issues that they're so-called trying to
Okay, so like
be justified. Or
specific issues.
yeah.
I mean, I'm just thinking, along the lines of when people are well traveled, for the most part, you learn different communities, and you learn about like their struggles and their hardships, and like even their like good upbringing. So like you learn a lot more about like people in different places, and like you learn about those places, and then you grow because you're not just stuck in a town like East Aurora for your entire life.
Totally, yeah.
Like that's how I've like slowly just, I keep adding to my personality by going and doing these things, and like do things that scare me, but like, talk to people who I don't necessarily like, I wouldn't generally talk to, but I don't know. Just, I think when you are well traveled, you make your own experiences and you learn a lot about other people.
Yeah, I agree 100%.
I do think too, though, on a contrarian note, like as far as like East Aurora goes, and like any town like that, like I think everyone has to come up with their own metric of success. When it comes to the like, are you successful or are you not? That's an individual venture, right? Like, and for some people, staying around their family and like pursuing something in their hometown, if that brings them satisfaction, joy, and success in their eyes, then who are we to say like that it's a negative thing, right?
That's a whole different, success in and of itself is a whole different kind of.
Yeah. No, I definitely don't think it's
but
a negative thing to stay in your hometown.
I don't either.
If you can make the most of it and love the place that you're in, then that's important.
But yes, I agree. With that though, if you have to understand, if you are sheltered in that way where like you're totally cool with not traveling so much or whatever it may be, you have to understand that when you talk about certain issues, like really think about what you're saying, because it's coming from a place like this is what really pisses me off. I'll give a little example. The whole like Black Lives Matter movement, when all that was happening, and I hear everyone from East Aurora doing, just putting their piece in, it frustrates me because they have no fucking idea what it's like to live in a kind of what's the word? Not poverty, but
Minority. Can't
think of the word.
I get what you're saying, but I also think too, like if someone's trying to speak positive and be on the right side, like who cares? You know what I mean?
Right. Like they don't have to know.
But I agree.
All
I get what you're
about
saying too. Like I think this finger pointing stuff is problematic in and of itself. Like, like I've suffered more than you, so I'm right, or like.
No, that's not what I'm saying.
I know you're not saying that, but I'm saying when people like, I think all that matters when it comes to like hot topics like that, like Black Lives Matter, is that if you, like, I think people just need to realize like if you're trying to uphold like the good, then that should be enough,
So, Kellen, are you saying that they're putting their 2 cents in like in a negative way rather than supporting the movement?
I'm saying they're putting their 2 cents in quicker than they should.
Okay.
I think that they're not doing enough. They're not really diving into the root of the issue. They're just seeing the headlines and going along with it.
Yeah.
And that could be not just Black Lives, that could be literally any topic across the board. If you see the headline and you're just trying to fit in with the masses, that's where I have the issue, I guess.
But you're finding issues with the
Everything.
masses, but the masses finding like a means of common ground and support. So I guess what I'm saying is you are seeing an issue with somebody seeing a headline and being like, oh yeah, I agree with that.